Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Adderall Jenkins.
And I'm no...
We'll be done with this in a minute. Hold on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Adderall Jenkins.
And I'm Noah Waldman.
And today, we are going to be looking at... What are we looking at?
The DC New 52, issues number 1 of Static Shock.
And Action Comics. And we're going to be doing the same for you.
Yep. So, do you want to start off on a good foot or a bad foot?
A good foot or a bad foot? Let's start off on the simple foot with Static Shock. Yeah, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, so I said in the last video that Green Arrow was probably my least favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Static has dethroned that for not being at all very good.
Now, I have to admit, I've never read anything relating to Static Shock. I've also never seen the TV show, which I heard was alright, but I never really cared. Do we want to give sort of a summary of maybe who Static is and then like the plot of the...
I only saw the cartoon, and I'm pretty sure that introduced Static. I don't know if it was in the comics.
I think
before that.
Actually, I think I read about this. The comics came out shortly before the cartoon, and I think were written by the same person who did the show.
Well, anyway, Static Shock, Virgil Hawkins, was a teenager in Dakota. I forget if it was North or South. One of the Dakotas.
They just call it Dakota.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I really should have brushed up on this before. During a middle of kind of like a gang fight, there was a metahuman kind of anomaly. There was a busted gas tank or something, and he gained superpowers that allow him to manipulate and control electricity and ion waves and all sorts of techie sciencey stuff.
It's actually the first time I'm hearing this origin story. Did you say a gang fight?
There was a gang fight.
In one of the Dakotas?
In one of the Dakotas.
Apparently they have those.
Yeah, it's actually funny. When I bought this comic, I kind of joked with one of our other friends, Kevin, that at the end of the comic, like the last 2 pages, should be a PSA, because the cartoon always ended on a PSA, like, guns are bad and don't do drugs.
Unfortunately, we don't have one of those.
No.
So I guess you're saying that in terms of personality, not personality, that in terms of abilities, he's
Electric Man.
He's the character from Infamous. What's his name?
Cole McGrath.
Cole
He's Cole McGrath, yeah.
He uses some of the same powers, though.
He does.
Like light thing to throw stuff away and light ball.
Light tether. The lightning tether.
Yeah, no, so he's essentially...
Cole McGrath.
Yeah. So, should I talk about the issue itself, or should you?
I kind of want to destroy it.
No, but I mean, like, just summary first.
Okay, well, summary. It's very basic. Static has recently moved to New York, and it is New York. I find that really interesting, that it's not a fictional city like Metropolis or Gotham, that is an amalgamation of a bunch of other cities. But it is actually New York. They mentioned New York, they mentioned Dakota. So this takes place in the real world.
Well, I think it just takes place in a real part of the DC world.
Yeah.
It shows us, I think, that New York exists in the DC universe as well. Because we really... I don't know if it's come up before, but generally speaking, we don't know whether certain real cities exist in the DC universe or if they just have fictional counterparts.
Or analogs.
Yeah, so I mean...
But this takes place in New York. And Static has just recently moved there. He's attending high school. And he is also an intern at Star Labs. And with this issue, basically, is there was an incident at Star Labs. Someone made off with a very valuable suit that controlled plasma, or it's all very, very sciencey, mumbo jumbo. And then Static has to stop him. He's not really good. He causes a lot of damages as he stops him. And then apparently there's this cabal of other villains who really kind of small time. We don't know about them, at least. It's no one like the Joker or the Penguin or any of other Batman's rogue gallery. So these villains that we don't really...
It's no one from Gotham.
It's no one from... True. So it's these New York supervillains who no one's really ever heard of. And they're like, oh, who's this Static kid? And someone from Dakota, and we don't know him. Well, let's eliminate him.
It's a good thing Hawkman didn't find out.
Yeah.
No, seriously, when your hero is someone who is a step below Hawkman, I mean, that's kind of...
And Hawkman doesn't even have his own comic book now.
He does.
He does?
Yes.
Well, either way, Hawkman is just a bird. Anyway, so, it's I found Green Arrow to be kind of bland, kind of boring. I just found Static to be obnoxious. I think they tried to aim for the old Spider-Man type demographic, where he's always a teenager, he's the only thing a teenager and a superhero, and he's witty and he's smart and he likes to trash talk and say how good he is at everything. And then they want to kind of juxtapose that with that he is kind of a superhero noob, but he just comes across as obnoxious. He doesn't come across kind of as earnest as someone like Spider-Man.
He's kind of douchey.
He's a dick.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even necessarily that he's someone who you have to hate or anything, and it's not necessarily that he's embodying really bad character traits, but a lot of the things he says, they're not funny, they just kind of fall flat.
If we could pull up a quote.
We could pull up, and also the pages are covered in them. That's kind of a problem I had. Do you mind if I talk about that?
I just want to pull up a really bad quote.
Cool.
Where's the one who's bragging? Ah. If you were to just read those bubbles over here, well, it's blurry on the camera. So.
I'll try to read it if you want. Something, I'm alive. You're welcome, my friend. He says, you're welcome, my friend. And New York City, you're welcome too. Chill out and relax. You're in the hands of an expert. I know exactly what I'm due. Wow, that rhymes.
Yeah, so what it kind of reminded me of was...
And I will say, that even I don't really find so bad, because then they do cut to everyone being like all pissed off at him.
Yeah.
Because, oh no, you fried my cell phone, and my card battery isn't working, and I need it. So it's kind of like a moment, but I don't think it really works.
No, but just the way he's written.
Yeah.
It actually... When you were reading that, I kind of flashed to Jaleel White as Sonic the Hedgehog.
I never watched that show, so I don't really know.
I was like, he's totally batical, dude.
But I mean, even that sounds like kind of cheesy in an over-the-top way that gives it some...
but Static is being sincere.
Yeah, I think Static. And also, even when we see him at home interacting with other people, in a sense...
Wait a minute. I just brought up Jaleel White. And,
What?
He's an Urkel!
Yeah, he is kind of Urkel. But, in that picture... But at the same time, I think, especially when you have him like interacting with other people, I just don't see why all of this stuff, like the kind of, I don't see where the appeal is supposed to be. It's because I understand what they're going for. It's just not done well. And can I talk about maybe the pacing of the story and stuff?
Yeah.
I think in terms of story, it's difficult because you have a giant action scene in the beginning, like the first half, and he's trying to stop this guy in the plasma suit. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to follow what's going on because it's covered in text boxes describing on a very technical level what's happening on the page. And then at the same time, visually, everything is so incredibly cluttered and non-illustrative of what's happening that it's really, really difficult to follow. You just kind of have to sift your way through. I mean, do you want to show like maybe this page to show kind of what it's looking like?
If you just look at these two pages, there's almost an equal amount of art, well, drawing and words.
And it's not even drawing that carries the story. It's more clutter.
Yeah.
And with that,
and to go along with that, the art itself is not very good. I mean, even if you were to look at the cover, which is usually where the best art of a comic is found, because of course they want to advertise it.
And it's drawn by someone else.
It's not good. Like, this is the quality found. I mean, this isn't quality found in any of the other comics, really,
and I
in
think,
regards to the art.
Would you like to maybe expound on what you mean when you say not good?
It kind of looks like they ran out of budget for this comic, and that the artist didn't really want to try. It kind of looks like draft sketches that were colored, like they colored in the sketches instead of the actual lines and inking.
I would say everything's kind of nondescript.
It's nondescript,
especially when we get to.
It's fuzzy looking.
Yeah. And when we get to, I think you should maybe find that one thing you showed me earlier, the one page where they're on. Ah, there.
Yeah, this panel in particular shows you the quality that is found in the comic. It doesn't look finished. It looks just plain and undetailed, and you use nondescript. That's a good word. And the guys look part of their bikes, and they are not bike people.
Yeah, and also when we eventually get to we get to the New York skyline, or
And
New
wait,
York City.
one more image. Chibi static.
Bow-legged chibi static.
Like a chibi static. That's right.
I mean, in some places he is just really off
He's
model.
completely off model.
He lost his knees.
Yeah.
But
So the art is just despicable.
and on that note, eventually at the very end we do get to New York at night. But I mean, New York at night, I'm not going to say it's the easiest thing to draw, but it's probably, if you're an artist, it's something that you would probably want to draw if you're into drawing cities, because it's such an iconic thing. In this, most of it,
This is
most
New York
of the
at
background, well, actually, what I was going to talk about was a different one. Do you mind if I find it?
Okay.
What we get is essentially I'm almost there. This is just the very end. What we get are gray rectangles with greenish-yellow rectangles on the rectangles. And that is apparently what New York City looks like.
Also, if you do live in New York or know enough about New York, I just want to read something incredibly ridiculous. So, the setup of this page right here is that these guys on the motorcycles are chasing Static, and one of them, they're following Static, says, "He's over the MTA!" Now, the MTA is the Metropolitan Transit Authority. It is all the subways, buses, bridges, tolls in the city.
See, that's the interesting
Is
thing.
the MTA.
Yeah, it's like, first off, the MTA isn't a physical thing, it's an organization. It's essentially a company/government organization. It's not actually a physical construct. And second,
And he's over it!
if we're talking about being over the MTA, if we were talking about it as a physical thing, it's essentially all of the bus routes, all of the
The trains.
subways that are both
tunnels.
underground and above ground, elevated. So I'm not sure if that counts like highway stuff, though. I don't think that's the MTA. I think it's just mass transit.
Yeah.
But so essentially, you can't be over the MTA, and I assume that they meant a elevated train.
Or even, like, Port Authority or something.
But
Maybe not Port
that.
Authority.
Well, because Port Authority, I think is that MTA? Oh, it is.
That is MTA, yeah.
Yeah, but I assume they meant like an elevated train, because I think that's what they drew. But geographically, where he was supposed to be,
There are no
there
elevated
is none.
trains.
So,
They didn't really do their geography research.
Yeah, did not do the research. It's almost as bad as that part of the Smurfs where we were meant to believe that Chinatown was next door to Midtown West.
Well, then again, he did take a taxi to the train, so...
So I would say on a letter scale, where would you put
I would put this as an F. I did not like Static Shock.
Yeah, I mean,
And I would not recommend buying number 2.
I didn't even buy
I
number
would
1.
Buy this one, no.
Yeah. I would probably put it, I would say an F. Yeah, probably an F. Maybe an F plus, just because there are a few, I mean, it's not offensively bad.
I found it pretty offensive.
I did too. I mean, there are a few moments where you can, like, follow the action, and there's a little bit that you get out of it, but I would say probably an F, yeah.
But one thing, I did think that if it did one thing right, it did the ending right. And I don't want to say that, oh, the best part's the ending because it's over. I legitimately think that the ending did kind of put something out there. It started something. It really is the most story you'll find in Static Shock is the ending. And if they could take the quality of the ending and kind of stretch that out into Static number 2, I'd really like to see that. I'd like to see it improve because I did like Static Shock when I saw the cartoon.
On the other hand, do you want to finish?
And it is a big event. Like, it does come out of nowhere, kinda, but it is a big event. It is something happening. It isn't cluttered. It's well directed, the ending, I guess you could say. So that's the only good point about it, really.
I thought the ending was just kind of cheap, because it is something that would be like, oh, what's going to happen? But it does feel like kind of you could tack that onto the ending of any book that we were reading, and you would have the same effect. So, final thoughts on Static?
Don't get it.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to see something about a teen hero who's all cool and whatever, I would wait for Firestorm.
Or pick up Spider-Man or something.
Yeah, you could just read Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And if you want electric powers, play Infamous.
Infamous 2, I haven't played, but I hear it's coming out. Or maybe
It is
came
out. It's
out already! What are you waiting for?
Exactly!
And so now I think we come to the one that I suppose is the biggest comic that...
Next to Detective, I guess. Or Batgirl, depending on who you are. But this comic has a whole lot of name writing on it. It's Superman. It's Grant Morrison. It is
Action Comics.
#1, New 52, Superman in jeans.
Yes, Superman in jeans. I have to say, I didn't really necessarily expect much from this, because Grant Morrison wrote All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman, a lot of people have said really good things about.
I really liked it.
I wasn't able to get past issue 5. Seriously. Like, I have the first collected volume at home, the trade paperback. It's got the first 6 issues in it. I can't get past issue 5, because that is how disinterested I am in it. But this is something entirely different altogether. So if you liked All-Star Superman, I don't think I can comment on this relative to that at all. Do we want to... Should I summarize the plot for this one?
You summarize this one.
Alright, so we are in the past at some point. Unlike Justice League, it doesn't say exactly where we are.
We're assuming 7 or so years.
Yeah, because we know Justice League was formed 5 years ago. Joker has been around for 6 years. Barbara Gordon has been in the chair for 3 years. In this, all we know is that Superman...
has been around for 6 months.
He's been around for 6 months.
In Metropolis.
Yeah. So I would say that it must be probably more than 6, because if we're to believe that Superman is the first of these superheroes, then he would have to predate at least Batman and the Joker. So we would say probably like 6, 7 years in the past.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some promotional material that says specifically, but it's not explicitly mentioned in the comic. So, story, that's right.
Yeah.
So we have this swanky party that's going on in the beginning.
Rich CEOs.
Rich CEOs. Superman comes, being the typical Superman, he picks him up, glows his eyes red, tries to throw him off the building. Police come, he does throw him off the building, catches him, tries to do it again, the guy confesses to his crimes, and then throughout the rest of the issue, we have the military and the police who are consulting with Lex Luthor, chasing down Superman, trying to hunt him and stop him. They're calling him, I think, the name Superman even is new. They're referring to him more as an it than as a person.
As an alien.
As an alien.
Because they know he's an alien.
Yes,
by this point.
they do. He's an anomaly. He's wearing a t-shirt. He doesn't even have his full uniform at this point. And on the way, as he's being chased by these people and being very smug about how indestructible he is going all over Metropolis, saving people from various things.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think it turns out that a lot of them are...
they're meant to hurt Superman.
Yeah, they're meant to hurt Superman and to lure him in. So they're essentially traps set by Luthor.
Yeah. So, and that's something that the comic does very well. It does, while it is a #1, and unlike the other origin stories that we've seen, where they, just kind of throw us into something because we know who the characters are. In Action Comics, they are reintroducing the characters in from the beginning, essentially. This is a Superman that we haven't really seen before. This Superman is brazen. He's arrogant. He doesn't quite know what he's capable of yet, but he really wants to find out.
I would say that. Or, in a sense, he's kind of overinflated by the fact that he does know what he's capable of, or he knows at least some of what he can do. Also, it seems that this is a world in which kryptonite is not known to hurt Superman.
Not yet, at least.
So that would actually make a lot of sense that if we don't know about kryptonite and that Superman is vulnerable to kryptonite, he must actually feel indestructible.
Exactly.
So I think this is the sort of thing that could be very polarizing, because it does not seem like the Superman we're accustomed to, who's standing up in the name of righteousness for truth, justice, and the American way.
Even though he's still doing that.
Yeah, at the same time, he is doing that, but it's just in a context that we're not really used to. Because also, it's not just the way Superman is treating everyone else, but it's the way...
people see Superman.
Exactly.
Because they are calling him an it. People are genuinely surprised when he saves them, as if they don't know... They think he is a threat at first.
Yeah, and also, on some levels, he seems more like Green Arrow than Green Arrow did. I think when I was talking to him, when I was talking to Noah earlier, I referred to Green Arrow as... I said Superman seems like Green Arrow. No, the real Green Arrow.
Yeah.
As opposed to the one in Green Arrow 1. Because he is really... He's fighting corruption and all of that, and he's also really standing up for the common man who's being essentially endangered by the people who are trying to stop Superman.
Oh, Fox News is going to hate this comic.
So, in that respect, yeah, he seems much more of a populist type of hero. So I could see this being kind of polarizing in that people might not be necessarily comfortable with this image of Superman or say it's not true to who Superman is. But I think,
what you have to remember is that this is Superman 7 years before he is Superman, really.
yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that you really have to give time. I mean, it could go either way. It could not have a satisfying resolution. I'm not saying it's definitely going to be great down the line, but I think it has a lot of potential, and that if you stick with it, it really could evolve into something fantastic. And should we talk about the art now?
Let's talk about the art.
I guess me.
Okay.
I really like it because visually it's also not necessarily what you would associate with Superman. Also, I think this is great because the cover really does represent what the book looks like, and I think, yeah, definitely in terms of the color palette and the shading, it's really strange because normally you would associate with Superman sort of the really bright primary colors, and Metropolis as being really the daylight city, and the City of Tomorrow. I think this is actually called Superman versus the City of Tomorrow. But they use a much darker color palette with these really sort of... It takes place in the evening going into night, and they use these really sort of pinks and purples and these
oranges.
Sort of... Yeah, these dark, warm colors that create this real sort of ambience. So you really... It feels like a city, though.
Yeah.
I think just...
And it feels like a city that hasn't quite met a Superman yet. It feels like a city that... I don't want to say is put in line by Superman, because that's not really what he does, but it feels like a city that doesn't know exactly who a Superman can be. It doesn't know that it has this paragon of honesty and truth and justice that's looking over it. So it is kind of more like Gotham in that respect, where instead of this bright, shining hero, they have this guy who is kind of messing things up and destroying things as he's going along saving people.
Yeah, it is weird because I think that you have... I wouldn't say it looks like a Gotham City, but I think it has elements of other cities that we've seen. It doesn't seem like the city of... It doesn't really seem like the City of Tomorrow.
It doesn't seem like Metropolis yet.
It doesn't... It's not that iconic Metropolis that we're used to.
It's a Metropolis without a Superman.
Yeah, and also... And I mean, there are just these touches. Superman, just getting him looking really kind of sinister and frightening. We've got the glowing eyes in a lot of places.
I really like this image.
Yeah, I mean, this is not really what we would expect when we see Superman, and I was kind of scared when I saw that, like, oh no, what is this comic going to be? But it gets better, definitely.
Yeah. And throughout this Superman, he has a boyish charm, kind of. His brazenness.
He doesn't seem obnoxious like, let's say, Static does.
No, Static is just obnoxious, but he seems kind of boyish. He's like, the cops were cornering him. He's like, we'll shoot. And he says, try. I don't really have time for this, but chase me if you want. And so he's...
I think one of them is like, he's going to shoot Superman, and he's like, you want to see if it's true what they say?
Yeah. So he's... And it is something that we know that Superman can do, unlike Static, who's, getting pushed around, really, and, being shown that he can't do all of this, but he's still being really obnoxious about it. With Superman, we know that he is this bulletproof hunk of steel that's just whizzing about the city. And, so it is more earnest.
Yeah. But at the same time, he doesn't feel overpowered, or it doesn't feel like we're kind of bringing that... he doesn't seem like the sort of big, indestructible guy, because while he does seem indestructible, I think that...
He does get beat a bit.
He does, but it's not even him getting beaten, because I've said this with a lot of people. I think what people miss with Superman is that the point of Superman isn't that he's a guy who fights bad guys who could be defeated by them. It's that he's a guy who saves other people. That Superman, even at his peak physical strength, he can't be in all places at once. So he does have to constantly perform these heroic feats of strength, which I think is what Superman does best.
Well, his emblem is a shield.
Yeah, his emblem is a shield, and the iconic image is Superman stopping an automobile by going like this. By
lifting it up.
And not just a car, like on the original Action Comics, but just he constantly, whether it's an airplane in the movie, whether it's something else in this that I'm not going to give away what it is because that's kind of a spoiler, but he just constantly stops giant transportation vehicles and saves the people inside. I mean, that's...
Or it's him with the globe on the Planet Express. Daily Planet. Daily Planet building that's falling, he swoops down, he picks it up and saves it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is really what Superman is. He's not a fighter, he's a savior. and I think we really get that here, and I'm interested to see where it goes, very much so. So,
actually, and he does go through this comic. It's not really about him fighting anyone or even escaping the police that's after him, but the story of this comic is that Lex Luthor is kind of planning all these traps for Superman, and they all involve human bait. And we do see Superman go out of his way, instead of escaping these traps as fast as he could, saving these people, getting them out of harm's way. And then we kind of see this image evolve from Superman being an it to the people, to Superman endearing himself to the people. And there's one scene where the people are kind of standing, "No, don't hurt Superman, he saved us."
Yeah,
so you kind of see, you know where this comic is going from basically that point.
Yeah, and
where he's going from this it to the Superman that we know, and the Superman that people know can save them.
it seems like the beginning of a very long transformation.
Mhm.
So, but the seeds are here and they are sprouting. So,
Yeah.
on a letter scale, where would you put this?
B.
I would give it. Oh, what would you like to explain? What?
It is good. The art's good. Superman, it's just a bit jarring, I think.
Yeah.
And even if you take it into account that this is the Superman of 7 years ago, it doesn't feel right. But I think that's where the comic strength will lie if it does develop correctly. Where you will see this brazen punk with all these powers. Oh, something I did want to mention about the powers that we both thought was really cool. It's not flying Superman yet. It's leap over a building in a single bound Superman.
Yeah, he does jump a tall building in a single bound.
He doesn't really know he could fly yet, and that is something that's pretty cool. You will see, I believe, you'll see Superman develop his powers.
Yeah, and he doesn't even have the full costume.
He doesn't even have the full costume. It is Superman becoming Superman.
I would
in
call
all shapes and sizes.
I would give it a B+ because I think Superman is very thematic, and I think that it's something that's really hard to kind of hit the nail on the head with. But I think it doesn't do it directly, but it starts to do it, and it really, if you don't set those themes, if you don't really establish that very early on, then you're not going to get a story that's fully formed. I think this does a surprisingly good job of really, even when he's not Superman, getting at what Superman is and what
how he
Superman,
becomes Superman.
and also, yeah, and the potential is in there
Yeah.
too. It's not all manifest. So could I just finish that?
Okay.
Sorry about that little interruption there. What was I saying? The potential is there.
Mhm.
So do you want to say something there?
Yeah, I wanted to say that Superman is this iconic character, and what this comic does is use what we know of Superman, what we expect of Superman, to its strengths by emphasizing that he isn't that character yet. You know what the end is. It's a foregone conclusion, but that's what makes it interesting. You want to find out how he went from the character in Action Comics #1 to the Superman that is so iconic and recognizable, that we know, that we love, and that we expect to see.
Yeah. I think this might be the best issue 1 so far, because it's really
In its oneness.
but I think also in terms of beginning a story, the other stories that have really had hooks to them are mysteries, and they end by asking some question that it's like, oh, what's this going to be? And they sort of segue with a surprise, or they segue with something new being introduced. This comic doesn't really do that. It's more everything that starts in the first few pages just keeps building, and you could see it continue. You could just really follow it right off. You don't need a cliffhanger ending.
It's kind of self-propelled.
Yeah, it is, and I think that it does very well. The reason I'm not ranking it higher is because I, at the same time, think that but a significant amount of its appeal lies not just in what's in the comic itself, but in its potential, which does make me very much want to continue reading, but doesn't necessarily make this comic standalone exceptional.
Mhm.
And also, there was just one small thing that really bothered me. I don't know if we have to show them, but you can constantly see people using smartphones in this. Smartphones did not exist 7 years ago the way that they are shown here. You can't take video on a phone in, 2003?
2003, 2004.
2003, 2004. And, I mean, maybe there were some phones that could.
Take
but-
pictures, at least.
But yeah, but you didn't have that same ubiquity that you see with in this
Mhm.
comic. So, but that's just a small nitpick. It's not influencing my overall opinion.
But-
So,
Static is a not buy. This is a buy.
I would
Buy this one. Leave Static in the shop.
I would recommend it. I mean, again, I'm sure it will be polarizing, but at the same time, if you like Superman, and I don't even love Superman, but I do find him interesting, I think it's a very good foundation for what could be an amazing Superman story.
And
So I think we are done with that. Next week, we will be back with whatever comes out next week, and we might be
we might be doing the rest of the comics that came out this week.
We might be doing Hawk and Dove!